Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are tackling a subject that feels incredibly familiar, yet when you actually start to peel back the layers, it is just full of surprises.
It really is.
We are talking about the United States of America.
It's the topic everyone thinks they know
Yeah,
until they really look at the data. It's the elephant in the room of global geopolitics.
totally.
Everyone has an opinion on the U.S., everyone watches its movies, they use its currency, or they follow its elections. But very few people actually stop and look at the structural reality of the country, especially now.
Especially now that we're settled into early 2026.
Exactly.
Exactly. I mean, we live in a world where American culture, American politics, American economics, it's part of the background noise of daily life, It's everywhere.
It is.
But today, we're doing something a little different. We're taking a snapshot of the U.S. as it stands right now on Monday, February 16th, 2026.
And that date is so important because the landscape has really shifted. We aren't talking about the America of 2020 or even, 2024.
Not at all.
We're looking at a nation under the administration of President Donald Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance. A nation that has, for the first time, officially declared a national language. A nation grappling with economic paradoxes that would just make your head spin.
That is the mission today. We are going to unpack the machinery of this superpower. We're going to look at the physical reality of the land, the shifting demographics of 2025, the economic engine that, and this is a spoiler alert, is currently sitting at over $30 trillion, and the political tensions that are really defining this moment.
It is a massive subject. I mean, you have to remember, we're talking about the oldest surviving federation in the entire world.
The oldest.
Yeah, and it's a mega-diverse entity.
Yeah.
A country that holds the world's largest economy, while at the same time dealing with some of the most significant internal polarization in its history.
So let's not waste any more time. Let's start with the physical reality, because before you can get to the politics or the money or the people, you have the land itself. And I think we forget just how big this place actually is.
Oh, it's massive. It's easy to lose perspective on the scale. We're talking about the third largest nation by land area in the world. But it's not just about the square mileage.
Right.
It's about what's inside those borders. The United States is officially designated as a mega-diverse country.
Mega diverse. That sounds like a term out of a comic book. What does that actually mean in a scientific context?
It's a very specific biological designation. There are only 17 countries on Earth that actually qualify for this title.
Only 17.
Only 17. And it refers to nations that harbor the majority of Earth's species and also have high numbers of endemic species.
So plants and animals you can't find anywhere else.
Precisely. To give you a sense of the scale, the U.S. is home to roughly 17,000 species of vascular plants.
Wow.
And over 400 mammal species. The biodiversity is just, it's off the charts. And the reason for that is because the geography covers almost every single climate type imaginable.
Right, because you have everything from the Atlantic coastal plain all the way to the highest peaks of the Rockies.
Exactly. I mean, think about it. If you were to walk across the country, you'd start in the east with the rolling hills of the Piedmont and the Appalachian Mountains, which are, by the way, some of the oldest mountains on the planet.
Older than the Himalayas, right.
Much older.
Yeah.
Then you hit the Great Plains, this vast, flat, incredibly fertile prairie that effectively feeds a huge chunk of the world. It's the breadbasket.
The breadbasket.
Then you keep going west, and the land just shoots up. The Rocky Mountains peak at over 14,000 feet, and buried deep within those mountains, specifically in Wyoming, you have the Yellowstone caldera.
Which is the continent's largest volcanic feature. That always freaks me out a little bit, to be honest.
It should. It's a genuine supervolcano, a sleeping giant. But the drama of the American landscape isn't just geological, it's also meteorological.
Right.
We really have to talk about the weather.
The extreme.
The extremes, because the source material highlights something that I found quite startling.
What's that?
The U.S. receives more high-impact extreme weather incidents than any other country on Earth.
Wait, really? More than anywhere else? Not China, not Russia, not Brazil?
More than anywhere else. It's a direct consequence of its unique geography. Think about it. You have this warm, moist air coming up from the Gulf of Mexico. And it collides with this cold, dry air coming down from Canada, right over the Great Plains. And that collision creates the perfect conditions for supercells, which in turn create Tornado Alley.
The most volatile weather on the planet, basically.
Basically, and that's just the middle of the country. You also have hurricanes that consistently batter the Gulf and Atlantic coasts. And recently, looking at the data from the last few decades leading up to 2026, the trends are just undeniable. Heat waves are reported as being 3 times more frequent now than they were back in the 1960s.
3 times. And we've all seen the news about the persistent drought in the Southwest, too. The Colorado River issues, Lake Mead.
Correct. It's a landscape of intense, breathtaking beauty, but also of intense volatility. But here's the flip side of that coin. While the environment is volatile, the U.S. has this massive, deliberate system of conservation.
The national parks?
The national parks, exactly. There are 58 of them, plus vast wilderness areas. But what's really interesting is that about 28% of all land in the United States is publicly owned and federally managed.
That is a huge percentage. A quarter of the entire country is basically government land.
It is, and it's primarily concentrated in the West. States like Nevada, Utah, Idaho. A huge portion of their land is federal. And this creates this constant tension between conservation and utilization.
What do you mean?
Well, we preserve the wilderness and parks, but we also lease other federal land for commercial use, for things like logging, mining, or grazing. It's a constant push and pull.
That makes sense.
Oh, and here's a fun little update from the sources, a bit of trivia for you. Did you know the bald eagle wasn't officially the national bird until just recently?
No, I thought the bald eagle has been on the Great Seal since, like, the very beginning.
It has been the national emblem since 1782. But it was only in 2024 that a law was finally passed to officially declare the bald eagle the national bird of the United States.
That is one of those classic bureaucratic things that just slipped through the cracks for almost 250 years. Someone in an office was like, hey, did we ever actually write that down?
Exactly. It just codifies the symbol that everyone already accepted. So you have this massive, physically diverse, and sometimes dangerous stage. Now we need to populate it.
All right, let's move into segment 2, the people. Who is living on this land in early 2026? What does the population look like?
So as of the 2025 estimates, the total population is sitting at approximately 341.8 million people.
That is a lot of people.
It is. It's the third largest population in the world, right behind India and China, and it is still growing. The population clock shows a net gain of 1 person every 16 seconds.
Every 16 seconds. That's a steady clip. Where is everyone coming from? I mean, what's the actual demographic breakdown look like now?
It is incredibly diverse, and it's constantly changing. If we look at the 2025 data, the white population is about 61.6%. The Hispanic or Latino population is roughly 18.7%.
And growing fast, I imagine.
The fastest growing major demographic group, yes. The black population is around 12.4%. Asians are now at 6%. And Native Americans make up about 1.1% of the total.
And it's important to remember, most of these people aren't living in those vast, empty rural spaces we just talked about.
No, not at all. That is a major misconception, one that's often fueled by Hollywood westerns or, movies about small-town America.
Right.
The U.S. is a heavily urbanized nation. 82% of the population lives in metropolitan areas. And get this, half of those people, so over 40% of the entire country, live in cities with over 50,000 residents.
So the small-town image of America is more of a cultural touchstone than a demographic reality?
Precisely.
Yeah.
Culturally, it's incredibly powerful. But demographically, America is a nation of suburbs and large cities.
I want to touch on the family unit for a second, because there was a stat in our source material that really, really stuck out to me regarding households.
I think I know which one you're talking about. You're looking at the single-parent household statistic.
Yeah, I had to read that one twice.
It is staggering. As of the most recent comparative data from 2019, the U.S. has the world's highest rate of children living in single-parent households.
The highest in the world.
In the world.
Yeah.
About 23%. That fundamentally shapes the social fabric. It changes the economic challenges many families face. It changes how education works, how childcare works, how poverty manifests itself. It's a hugely important data point.
Absolutely. Now we have to talk about language, because this is probably one of the biggest news items from our source material, something that's happened in just the last year or so.
This is a critical update for anyone trying to understand the United States in 2026. Historically, the United States has never had a de jure, a legally mandated official language at the federal level.
Right. The Founding Fathers just didn't put it in the Constitution. It was sort of understood that English was the common language of business and government, but it was never made into a law.
Exactly. It was a de facto official language, not de jure.
Until 2025.
Until 2025. President Donald Trump signed Executive Order 1.224, which officially declared English the official language of the United States.
That is a huge shift, at least symbolically. But does an executive order actually change the reality on the ground? I mean, does it change what people are speaking in their homes?
And that is the great American paradox, isn't it? You can sign an order, but the linguistic reality of the country is stubborn. It's organic. And despite that order, the U.S. remains incredibly, profoundly linguistically diverse.
So what did the numbers say?
You have over 41.2 million people who speak Spanish at home.
41 million. Just to put that in perspective, that's more than the entire population of most countries on Earth. More than Canada.
Yeah, absolutely is. And it's not just Spanish. You have significant populations speaking Chinese, Tagalog, Vietnamese, and Arabic. And that's not even mentioning the indigenous languages.
Right.
There are 169 Native American languages that are still spoken today. In fact, in some states, indigenous languages have official status.
Like where?
Places like Alaska, Hawaii, and South Dakota. So while the federal government has now made this official declaration about English, the streets and homes of America tell a much more polyglot, a much more complicated story.
It seems like that tension between the official identity and the organic reality is, well, it's a recurring theme here, isn't it?
It is the defining theme of American history, I would argue, and you see it just as clearly in immigration.
Okay, let's talk about that.
The U.S. has the world's largest immigrant population in absolute terms. No other country comes close. If you combine first-generation immigrants and their U.S.-born children, you're looking at nearly 27% of the total population as in 2022.
More than 1 in 4 people.
More than 1 in 4.
Yeah.
And then you have the undocumented population.
What's the latest number on that?
Our source material says that it reached a record high of 14 million in 2023. So you have this constant dynamic, a nation built by immigrants, a nation defined by immigration, yet a nation that is constantly struggling with how to manage, categorize, and legislate that very flow of people.
It's a permanent debate.
It's the permanent debate.
Okay, let's pivot. Let's talk about the engine that keeps this whole massive, complicated thing running. Segment 3, the economic juggernaut. Because the numbers here are they're truly hard to comprehend.
They are astronomical. I mean, there's no other word for it. The U.S. economy is, quite simply, the largest in the world in nominal terms, and it has been since about 1890.
Since 1890, that's a long run at the top.
A very long run. In 2025, the nominal GDP is estimated at $30.6 trillion.
30.6 trillion.
30.6 trillion. To put that in perspective for everyone listening, that single number accounts for over a quarter of the entire world's economic output.
Wow.
One country generating more than 25% of the global GDP.
That is just wild. And it's not just about the raw number, is it? It's about dominance in specific crucial sectors of the global system.
Correct. The U.S. dollar remains the world's foremost reserve currency. It's what oil is priced in. It's what central banks hold. If you look at the corporate landscape, the U.S. is home to the highest number of the world's 500 largest companies. 138 of them are headquartered in the U.S. as of 2025.
So more than a quarter of the biggest companies on the planet are American.
Yes, and we're talking about the big innovators. Silicon Valley is still the undisputed king of technological innovation.
For sure.
The U.S. is the leader in AI and pharmaceuticals and aerospace. The New York Stock Exchange and the NASDAQ are, by a huge margin, the 2 largest stock exchanges in the world by market capitalization. It is a machine that is designed to generate wealth and innovation on a scale that's unprecedented in human history.
But, and you knew this was coming, there's always a but. With the U.S., we have to talk about the wealth paradox. This was the real aha moment for me in the reading.
This is where the aggregate numbers, the big, shiny $30 trillion number, can actually hide the human reality on the ground.
Tell us what you mean.
Yes. The U.S. has the highest disposable household income per capita in the OECD, which means, on average, Americans are incredibly rich.
On average, that's the key phrase.
That is the key phrase. Because the distribution of that incredible wealth is one of the most unequal in the developed world. The top 10% of the population owns 72% of the nation's wealth.
72%. For just 1/10 of the people.
And this is the number that really gets me. The bottom 50%, half the entire country, owns just 2%.
Half the country owns 2% of the wealth.
That is the statistic from the source. And income inequality, the gap between the highest and lowest earners, has reached record highs in recent years. This creates a really jarring situation.
How so?
You have the richest economy in history, but in 2022, 11.5% of the population, more than 37 million people, lived in poverty. You have food insecurity affecting 13 million children.
13 million.
That's 1 in 5 kids in the United States experiencing hunger.
In a $30 trillion economy, it just doesn't compute.
Precisely. And in 2024, there were about 771,000 homeless persons in the country on any given night. The expert analysis in our sources points directly to the social safety net, or, more accurately, the lack thereof.
Compared to other rich countries, you mean?
Yes. Compared to its peer nations in Europe or Asia, the U.S. is a complete outlier. It has no federal mandate for paid family leave. It has no universal healthcare system. It's a system with a much higher tolerance for risk and inequality.
It's high risk, high reward. But the fall is a lot harder if you don't make it.
A much harder fall. It is an economic model that prioritizes dynamism and growth, often at the expense of security and equity. It manages to be the wealthiest nation on Earth while having these deep pockets of intense first-world vulnerability.
That leads us directly into how this country is governed, because you'd think a government overseeing this kind of paradox would be, well, very busy. So let's talk segment 4, government and the political landscape.
Well, getting into the 2026 context, the basic structure is familiar to most people. It's a federal presidential republic. You have the three branches: the president, the Congress, the judiciary.
And as we mentioned at the top, the current administration is President Donald Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance.
Right. And looking at the broader political health of the nation, we have to discuss polarization. This isn't just a feeling people have anymore. It's being actively measured by international observers.
What are they finding?
Indices like Freedom House and the VDEM Institute have actually downgraded the U.S.'s democratic status in recent years.
Downgraded to what? I mean, it's still a democracy, isn't it?
They use terms like illiberal democracy or mixed regime. That's a very significant shift for a country that has historically framed itself as the beacon of democracy for the rest of the world.
And the source material we're looking at explicitly brings up January 6th, 2021 in this context.
It does. And we need to be very precise here, sticking to the factual description that is in the historical record provided in our source. The source characterizes the January 6th attack on the Capitol as an attempted self-coup and an insurrection intended to prevent the peaceful transfer of power.
It's really interesting to see that language codified in the history books now. It's not just opinion anymore. It's part of the permanent record of the nation's political volatility.
It absolutely is. And it sets the context for the current political environment. The system is clearly under a great deal of strain.
And the Supreme Court plays a huge role here, too.
A massive role. With life-tenured justices, the court has a significant, often final, influence on constitutional interpretation. It frequently decides the most contentious cultural and political issues of the day, from abortion to voting rights.
Let's look outward for a second. Foreign relations. It's 2026. What is the United States doing on the world stage under this administration?
Well, the focus has definitely shifted. Relations with China remain very strained. That's been a consistent trend for a while now. The special relationship with the United Kingdom is still there, at least formally, and the military integration with NATO remains strong.
But the big story, according to the source, has been Ukraine.
The big story has absolutely been Ukraine. There was a major policy shift in 2025.
Right. What happened?
In March of 2025, President Trump paused all military aid to Ukraine and also ended the sharing of intelligence with them.
That must have sent a massive shockwave through the system in Europe.
A seismic shockwave. Now, the source does note that both the aid and the intelligence sharing were eventually restored. But that pause, that signals a new kind of volatility in U.S. foreign policy.
It's unpredictable.
Deeply unpredictable. It shows that alliances and long-standing commitments can fluctuate wildly depending on who is sitting in the Oval Office. It's a clear move away from the more predictable, consistent foreign policy of the post-Cold War era.
Okay, let's take a breath here. We've done the land, the people, the money, and the politics. Let's talk about the soul of the place. Segment 5, society, culture, and values. Because for all the political drama, American culture is still a global juggernaut.
It is the ultimate soft power. You have this concept of the American creed, this deep-seated, almost religious belief in liberty, equality under the law, and especially individualism.
Individualism is key.
It is, and that individualism manifests in really interesting ways. For example, philanthropy.
Americans give a lot of money away to charity.
A huge amount. They donate 1.44% of the national GDP to charity. That is by far the highest rate in the world. And it connects directly back to what we were saying about the lack of a government safety net.
How so?
Well, where the government steps back, there's a cultural expectation that private individuals and organizations will step in. It's a different approach to social welfare.
And religion plays a huge role here too, doesn't it?
Compared to other wealthy Western nations, the U.S. is a massive outlier. It was a highly religious nation.
Still, I feel like I hear a lot about secularization.
It is becoming more secular, but from a very high starting point. It's still majority Christian, pretty evenly split between Protestant and Catholic. But you're right, there is a rapidly rising demographic of unaffiliated people, the so-called nones, who are now at about 22%.
But religion is still present in public life.
Oh, absolutely. Even in secular life, you have what's called ceremonial deism.
Like in God we trust, on the currency, or under God in the pledge.
Exactly. It's baked into the cultural and political language in a way you just don't see in, say, France or the UK.
And then there's the export of culture. Media, sports, technology.
You really cannot overstate the global dominance of U.S. media. Hollywood is still the world's dream factory. American music pop, hip-hop, country, jazz, these are global genres.
And the internet itself.
The internet is fundamentally an American invention that defines how the entire human species now communicates. Google, Facebook, YouTube, X, all of them.
And sports. I saw the NFL revenue number in the source material and my jaw dropped.
It's incredible. The National Football League generated over $23 billion in revenue in 2024. It is the most valuable and profitable sports league in the world.
And American football isn't even that popular globally.
Exactly. And looking ahead, the U.S. is very much the center of the sporting universe right now. It's co-hosting the 2026 FIFA World Cup with Canada and Mexico, and Los Angeles is gearing up to host the 2028 Summer Olympics.
So all eyes are on the U.S. for the next few years.
All eyes.
We also have to touch on science and tech. We mentioned Silicon Valley, but space is still a big deal, a big part of the American identity.
For sure. The U.S. remains the only country to have ever landed humans on the moon. But the landscape has changed. Now it's a mix of the NASA legacy things like the James Webb Telescope and the Mars rovers, and this new era of private sector dominance.
SpaceX, Blue Origin.
Exactly. The private sector is effectively running the new space race. It's a very American evolution of that dream.
And energy. This was a surprising stat for me. Nuclear power.
Yes. Most people think of the U.S. and think of oil and gas. But the U.S. is actually the world's largest producer of nuclear power.
The largest.
By a lot. It accounts for 30% of the entire global total. And the plan referenced in our source is to triple that capacity by the year 2050. So despite the fossil fuel history, there is a massive institutional push toward high-output, low-carbon energy infrastructure.
Okay, we're coming into the final stretch here. Segment 6. Systemic challenges. We've touched on wealth inequality, but we need to look at health and justice specifically, because this is where the paradox becomes the most painful.
It really is. Let's start with healthcare. The U.S. spends more per capita on healthcare than any other nation on the planet.
Not just a little more, a lot more.
A lot more. It has the most advanced medical technology, the best research universities in the world. Yet, it remains the only developed country without a system of universal healthcare.
And the outcomes. They often don't match the spending, do they?
In many key metrics, like infant mortality or preventable deaths, the outcomes are often worse than in countries that spend far less. However, and this is a rare piece of good news, in the 2026 data life expectancy has actually ticked up recently.
It hit a record high, right?
It did. Life expectancy rose to 79.0 years in 2024, which is the highest it has ever been. And the primary reason cited for this increase is a significant fall in fatal drug overdoses.
That is huge, a really positive sign.
It is a sign that perhaps some of the major public health crises of the 2010s and early 2020s are maybe being mitigated to some degree.
But then we look at the criminal justice system, and the numbers are just as stark in the other direction.
The incarceration numbers are, frankly, breathtaking. The U.S. has the largest prison population in the world in absolute numbers. Over 1.9 million people are behind bars.
And per capita.
Per capita, it has the 6th highest incarceration rate globally. And violence remains a persistent issue. Homicide rates are significantly higher than in other high-income countries, a difference that is largely, almost entirely, driven by gun violence.
And finally, let's talk about the thing that connects this whole massive country. Infrastructure. We are a car culture, through and through.
Oh, absolutely. The numbers are clear. 850 vehicles per 1,000 people.
Wow.
The U.S. has the world's longest road network, over 4 million miles of road. It is a nation that was physically built for the automobile. And that makes the transition to different, more efficient modes of transit incredibly difficult.
Right. Passenger rail is very limited compared to Europe or Japan.
Very limited, though, interestingly, the freight rail system is actually one of the most extensive and efficient in the world. So we're great at moving goods by train, just not so great at moving people.
So we have unpacked the machinery. We've seen the incredible wealth, the deep poverty, the immense power, the intense polarization. How do we synthesize all of this? How do we wrap it up?
I think you have to say that the United States is, at its core, a land of superlatives and extremes. It is the richest economy in history, yet 1 in 5 of its children faces hunger.
It's a nation of immigrants that is constantly debating and tightening its borders.
It's a beacon of democracy that is, according to international observers, facing internal democratic backsliding.
A leader in medical science with a crisis of healthcare access.
It's all of those things at once.
It feels like the American dream itself, that central myth, is this shimmering concept that is incredibly real for some people and, at the same time, incredibly distant and unattainable for others.
That is the modern reality of social mobility in the U.S. The perception, the myth, is powerful. It drives people to come here to work hard, to innovate. But the data shows that climbing that economic ladder is much harder than the mythology would suggest.
So here is the final provocative thought for our listeners to take away. We're sitting here in early 2026. We have a new declaration of English as the official language. We have a Trump-Vance administration that is actively reshaping foreign and domestic policy. The world is changing. We're moving from the American century into a much more multipolar world.
And the question is this: is the classic U.S. model, this intense individualism, this culture of unchecked growth, this high-risk, high-reward system, is that model sustainable in this new century? Or is the mix, the melting pot, the diversity, the constant churn and reinvention that comes from immigration and new ideas, is that actually the nation's ultimate survival mechanism?
Can the country redefine its identity in this new era without tearing itself apart from the inside?
That is the fundamental question for America in 2026.
And that is a question that will be answered not in podcasts, but in the years to come. The United States is a massive, complex, and contradictory machine, and it never, ever stops moving.
Wow.
Thank you for listening to this deep dive. Our advice: look beyond the daily news cycle. See the structure. We'll catch you on the next one.